After getting shut out in Game 1 in Oakland, the San Francisco Giants absolutely needed to win the second game. They did it behind Blake Snell and a couple of huge extra innings homers and Ryan Walker escaping a major jam. But is it all too little too late as time is running out for the Giants?
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, been hosting this show for over 5 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, so check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedonmlb and use code all lowercase lockedonmlb for a first deposit match up to $100. And coming up on today's show, we're going to get into the Giants splitting this 2-game series in Oakland. They split their other 2 games against the A's back in San Francisco, so ultimately going 2-2 against Oakland, not good enough. And there's a lot of things that have not been good enough for the Giants this year. They've got an inverse home and road record, 36-27 at home. That's nice, but 27-36 on the road, hence an exact 500 record. And the question is it all too little too late? That is the big question, as there are only 36 games remaining. It's kind of amazing to me how quickly things go once you get to like the All-Star break and then the trade deadline, and then all of a sudden you turn around and it's like down the stretch they come. Time is running out. 36 games is more than a fifth of the season. It's 22.2% of the season remaining, but and they're 4 games back, but essentially 5 games back. That's why losing 3 out of 4 to the Braves was huge, because a tie with the Braves does them no good. A tie means they lose. Tie does not go to the Giants. It goes to the Braves in this case, and the Braves are currently that number 3 wildcard team. The Mets could possibly become that number 3 wildcard team. Padres or D-backs could theoretically slip back, especially because the Giants will play them 6 times each, and they basically have to do well in those games in order to make up the ground they need to make up, even if it's ground they need to make up against the Braves. And so a lot can change between now and the end of the season when it comes to the standings, but as it is now, 4 games back with 36 to play, we're going to ask the question, is this a must-sweep scenario against the White Sox? But I do want to dive into a little bit of what we saw over the weekend. First, the Giants' offense getting shut out in Game 1 and then scoring just 1 run through 9 innings in Game 2. So 18 innings of baseball in Oakland and 1 run. So yeah, half a run per 9 innings is not usually going to get it done. And so they're finally pitching well here in this series, and they couldn't score. But thankfully, they did score in extra innings. And Jerar, proper pronunciation here, I'm sure, is Jerar Encarnacion, leads off the top of the 10th with a booming home run to right center. Michael Conforto follows it up with a home run. And really, they needed that cushion as things got dicey in the bottom of the 10th. But it was all set up by Blake Snell, who just is on one of those rolls like he was on last year for the last, basically he did this for 20 plus starts, 21, 22 starts. His first 10 or so didn't go so well, but then he basically did this for the last 20 or so starts of the season and won the Cy Young Award. And you can see why. If he pitched like this for 2/3 of a season, you're going to win the Cy Young Award. He's just been unbelievably good. He recorded his 4th double-digit strikeout game of the season and 34th of his career. He has 55 strikeouts since July 27th, 5 games, his last 5 games, and that's the most by any MLB pitcher over a 5-game span this season. So, and not surprising, but also Snell has 55 strikeouts over his last 5 games, which passes John Montefusco, who had 54 between, they've got the dates wrong here, in August 1975, for the most in a 5-game span by a Giants pitcher in franchise history. So we've never seen more strikeouts by a starter over a 5-game consecutive span than we've just witnessed from Blake Snell. And that's exactly what they expected. I mean, I don't know if that's exactly what they expected. It's possibly more than they expected even. But, you know, when he had that 9 ERA like 2 months into the season, more than 2 months into the season, I kept saying, of course, that was not what we should expect out of Blake Snell moving forward. At any given moment, he was going to probably be Blake Snell, and that's what we've seen here. And so, yeah, I mean, unless he has some sort of major injury, he's trending towards opting out. And so it is worth noting that at the trade deadline, there weren't a lot of impact prospects moved and really impact players in general. And Farhan Zaidi commented on the type of offers they were receiving for Snell and that they were open-minded to selling here, but that it was, instead of some impact prospect coming back, it was more like a package of solid prospects. And that just wasn't a needle mover for them. They needed, and I get that. It's like, if you're in the race to some degree, I'm not just selling people just for the sake of selling. I'm holding on if I'm in it at all. And look, if they're 15 games back or something, then it's different. But they were like 3.5 or 4 at the deadline with 2 months left. And they're still 4, and that's a problem. But anyway, Snell is on a historic run. He very likely could end up leaving in free agency. In fact, that's, to me, the most likely option or outcome, because I don't know how long-term of a deal he thinks he's going to get entering his age 32 season. 4 years, 5 years max. And even then, that makes me very uncomfortable to think of a 5-year deal for a guy going into age 32, but we'll see. And that's a story for another time. But on the season now, 3.67 ERA, 2.72 expected ERA, 2.76 fielding independent pitching. He's just been awesome since coming back from this second IL stint, and probably had a lot to do with him lingering on the free agent market for so long that he dealt with those injuries that he dealt with. And he's kind of attributed it to that. And even the Giants ownership has commented on not making signings especially for pitchers super late in the offseason. And my response to that is kind of like, well, why didn't you sign him sooner? And it's because he wanted a bigger deal. I get it. But at the same time, if you want the impact and you don't want to wait, you've got to, what are you going to do? You've got to compromise a little bit. And even with Snell, they are looking likely to miss the postseason again. And so something's got to change in their kind of off-season philosophy, even though I and everybody who analyzes baseball thought they had a really strong offseason. It just hasn't translated to the type of year. This team was like 14 games over 500 for much of last year, and then they tanked in the second half, really in September. Held on to a wild card spot for much of last year. And this year's team is so much better, and yet they haven't been able to gain really separation from the 500 mark. 3 games over, I think, is their high point. And so, anyway, there's more to discuss. I want to get into Ryan Walker escaping a huge jam and what he's been able to do since stepping into the closer's role in the absence of Camilo Doval, who was optioned due to the rough year that he's had. And then we'll preview the White Sox series and talk about the end of Giants versus A's as the Battle of the Bay. That was it. No more of that after yesterday's game. So all of that coming up in just a minute. And before we get into it, Today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by our good friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members, myself included. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. Prize Picks is also available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. And I've been taking advantage of promotions on Tuesdays with players getting their stat projections lowered, and on Fridays getting my entry fees back if my lineup doesn't win, and playing on the Giants. And it adds a lot of fun to the game and have had a fair amount of success. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code all lowercase locked on MLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code all lowercase locked on MLB on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, as promised, we are going to get into the Ryan Walker situation with him escaping a major jam, and also previewing the White Sox series and the end of the Battle of the Bay, with the Giants facing the A's in Oakland for the last time, and facing the A's as the Oakland A's for the last time ever, most likely, unless some miracle happens and they end up sticking around somehow. But it doesn't seem like that is going to happen. Definitely wouldn't hold out hope for that. So anyway, I'm having trouble, if you're on YouTube, getting my name to appear, but we'll move on past that for now. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen today. Everydayers tomorrow breaking down Kyle Harrison against Jonathan Cannon, who's, he's got a better ERA than Kyle Harrison, but Giants really, really must take advantage of this White Sox team. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked On MLB podcast. Host Paul Francis Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully, is here daily to provide national expertise with his trademark humor and help you get ready for the MLB playoffs here in the dog days of summer. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day on Locked On MLB, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And a reminder that you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. So Ryan Walker is just, I think he warrants a little shout out here for what he was able to do, getting out of a major jam there in the bottom of the 10th, which all started with what was initially ruled a hit inexplicably. It was just like literally a ground ball that went right under the glove of Brett Wisely, and it was ruled a hit. Sometimes I don't know what these official scores are doing, but somehow that was ruled a hit initially. It was the most obvious error. I mean, it was just such an easy error. But anyway, it was ruled a hit. Thankfully, it was changed to an error because the run, he allowed the inherited runner to score, but that was it. So what happened was error to start the inning, and then a 4-pitch walk. And keep in mind, this was Walker's second inning. And I do believe, I could be wrong about this, and I may look here, but that this was the first time all year Ryan Walker has gone 2 full innings. It could be the first time in his career that he's gone 2 full innings. That's how big of a game this was. This year it was the only time that he's gone 2 full innings. And last year, his rookie season, he went 2 full innings, actually several times. He went 3 innings twice. So I think that was when he was like opening games. At least a few times, he was opening games and went 2+ innings. 1, 2, 3, 4 times it was as an opener. So anyway, he's done it before, but it's the first time he's done it this year. His previous high was 1 2/3, which he's done 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So yeah, 2 full innings, pitching an inning in a high leverage situation, ninth inning tie game, give up a run, you lose. And then all that adrenaline, getting out of it, getting through it, and then coming back out there is tough. And Bob Melvin basically echoed that same sentiment. But so, first of all, he should have had an out to the first batter he faced, and that would have probably calmed him down quite a bit. But there's the error initially, and then there's a 4-pitch walk, which is really the one you can't have happen, but it's super rare for Ryan Walker. He's not someone who walks people. His walk rate is very low at just 6%. And man, what a good season he's having. 2.10 ERA, 2.88 expected ERA, 2.59 fielding independent pitching, just great across the board, which is why I was saying about a month before they finally made the move that this guy should be closing instead of the struggling Doval. Ryan Walker, he ended up going 2 innings, 5 strikeouts. He struck out all but one of the outs he recorded was via the strikeout. He did give up 2 hits and that 1 4-pitch walk, but what an outing. I mean, what an outing. And then so he gives up a hit to Brent Rooker, who's super dangerous. So you're kind of just glad that pitch didn't leave the ballpark. This guy is a monster at the plate. He singled, so it loaded the bases with nobody out, with the Giants up 4-2. So all of a sudden, I checked the win probability on Baseball Savant later, and it went from like 90% Giants entering the bottom of the 10th to as soon as Rooker loaded the bases with nobody out and made it 4-2 A's, or it was already 4-2 A's, but it was then bases loaded, nobody out. The win probability was basically a coin flip, 50-50. And so this is not what you want to see after you take a 4-1 lead in extras and have your really good reliever on the mound playing a A's team that's 20 games under 500. And so all of a sudden, what should have been low stress became extremely stressful. And what does Ryan Walker do? He proceeds to strike out the next 3 batters he faces. And a lot of emotion out of Walker when he gets whoever it was, Miguel Andujar. No, it was somebody else. I forget who he struck out to end the game. But yeah, I like the emotion. These guys understand the importance of these games that they're playing right now. There was a lot of emotion from Heliot Ramos when he hit his home run to tie the game in the 7th or the 8th. I think it was the 7th. I'm trying to see when was Ramos's home run. I just want to verify. At top of the 7th, yeah, to tie the game at 1, and then a lot of emotion out of Encarnacion when he hit that home run in the top of the 10th, and even Conforto, a lot of emotion. And so these guys, and Blake Snell, like he got into a huge jam. I didn't even mention this in the bottom of the 7th, I think it was, and emptied the tank there. Yeah, it was the bottom of the 7th. Bases loaded, tie game, 3-0 count. Okay. And so it's like, you just have to throw 3 straight strikes. And he did. Well, the first pitch was up out of the zone. And there's an example of the huge importance of pitch framing and how much of an impact it makes on a game. So if you're a bad framer and you don't catch that ball well and it's called a ball, like, you probably lose this game. Giants didn't score another run through 9. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you lost 2-1. You got swept and everything could have been different. So getting that call was huge. It is worth pointing out. I would have been complaining about it if I was hosting Locked On A's, but Patrick Bailey, it's what he does. He's the best framer out there, or at least one of the very best. And it's why, even though he's in a huge offensive slump, he is still rated as one of the best, if not the best catchers in baseball, even though he's been below average offensively now on the season, given that he's been in this absurdly horrible stretch at the plate offensively. That's why they keep running him out there, because he makes such an impact on defense. I know he's not the best ball blocker, but framing is just by far the more impactful defensive skill, and he's really good at it, and that was a huge strike call, and it's partially due to Bailey framing the pitch well. So they get the call, and then Snell comes into the zone 2 more times and shows a lot of emotion. So that's what I'm saying. I like to see this team cares. Like, they're not just out here going through the motions. Like, they want to win. I saw when the Giants got shut out, Casey Schmidt struck out to end the game in game 1 of the series, and they showed a shot in the dugout, and Schmidt like slammed something down into the ground in the dugout, kind of out of sight. And I like to see that too. They care. They're trying. I know it, like, when the team doesn't hit, it looks lethargic, but they care a lot, and it's very hard to hit at the major league level. And the Giants have been an average offensive team. That is just worth pointing out as well. Their weighted runs created plus is exactly 100, which means exactly average. And so you could be like, oh, they're hitting 242. That's abysmal. Well, it's right about the major league average, by the way, just in terms of batting average, 244. It's like right there. And they play in a tough place to hit half their games. And so anyway, huge by Ryan Walker, huge by Snell, huge by Ramos, Encarnacion, and Conforto, and the emotion. Love to see it. And speaking of emotion, this is the last game of the Battle of the Bay. We'll get into that. I also want to just preview the White Sox series, and do the Giants have to sweep? We'll discuss where they are in the standings in just a minute, and before we get into it. Today's episode is brought to you in part by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. So you can check that out, and you can check out as baseball continues. It's just the best game out there, with the other sports kind of not in season right now. And there's so many baseball games, 36 or whatever remaining per team. And so action every day. And the Giants, speaking of the White Sox series, heavy favorites against the White Sox tonight. Money line at -240 for the Giants. Over under set at 7.5. I kind of with odds of -124 on the over. I kind of like the over there, just hoping that the Giants can get to, if not cannon, then the White Sox bullpen. And Kyle Harrison, not the Giants' best pitcher either. So we'll see. I kind of like the over on 7.5 though. So anyway, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and download America's #1 sportsbook. All right, as promised, the White Sox are coming into town, and do the Giants need to sweep this series? And also the Battle of the Bay, over, done, finito. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow we will be breaking down Game 1 of this series against the White Sox, who are 30-95. That is not a mispronunciation there. 30-95 in mid-August. They've got 95 losses. So they're going to chase the record for all-time worst team record. So a reminder, too, about Postcast with Eric Engel right after the game. Check it out on Locked On Sports San Francisco on YouTube. Hit the bell notification button so you can be notified when Eric goes live right after the game, and you can join the conversation and get that instant reaction. And on that channel, when the Warriors and the 49ers are in season, he does postcasts for them too. And for the Giants postcasts, they show up on the Locked On Giants podcast feed, just not on our YouTube channel because it has its own independent YouTube channel. So anyway, check that out. It's great. And so do the Giants need to sweep this series against the White Sox? If you know me, you know that I just hardly ever say, like, I'm very literal. And so to say, do they need to? No, because they wouldn't be eliminated if they didn't. But if we're talking about ultimately, do I think that sweeping this series is important in order to have any kind of shot at making the postseason? I mean, it's easy to just say yes, because like I said, 30-95 are the White Sox, and their road record is 12-51. And so certainly, if you don't win at least 2 out of 3, it's I don't like saying stuff like this either, but you don't deserve to make the postseason if you lose a series against the White Sox at home. Who knows? I don't know if they've won a series on the road all season, particularly against a team that's 500 or better, the Giants being exactly 500. They just have to take advantage. Must win at least 2 out of 3, I would say. But really, there's no such thing as a must win unless you really must win, or else you're eliminated. So I have a hard time with that. But a sweep would go a long way. Let's just say that. You would be 66-63. Right now, the Braves are 66-58. So even if the Braves just pause their season for the next 3 days and the Giants swept this series, they'd still be 5 games worse in the loss column and equal in the win column than the Braves. And so the Braves are playing the Phillies starting tomorrow, so I guess they're off today. But that's good news because the Phillies they have the best record in baseball. And so that's good that the team you're chasing is playing the team with the best record in baseball. Hopefully the Phillies can just sweep the Braves. And the Mets are also ahead of the Giants by 2 games, but behind the Braves by 2 games. And they're playing the Orioles, who have the best record in the American League, tied with the Yankees. And tied with the Dodgers too, for the second best record in baseball. So that's good. The 2 teams directly ahead of the Giants are playing, tied for and the best record in baseball. Best record and tied for second best, while the Giants are playing by far the team with the worst record in baseball. It's not even close. But then again, this is baseball, and White Sox beat up the Yankees a week or so ago. And they also won a series against the Astros in their most recent a game against the Astros. And so sweeping a team is not easy necessarily, even if they're this bad. But given the Giants' position, it's easy to say, yeah, you got to sweep these guys. Otherwise, you're 65-64. And then the schedule gets tougher. That's the thing, is you're not going to play. You got to take advantage when you play this kind of team. So that's my take on that. In game 1, it's Kyle Harrison against, like I said, I had never even heard of this guy. That's how you know you're playing the White Sox. Jonathan Cannon, who is 24 years old, really doesn't get a lot of strikeouts, low strikeout rate. Given that, the Giants will probably strike out 10 times against him, or at least like 8. They just struggle generally against guys they've never seen. Even when the players change, new players come in and it's the same old story, it seems. But put an end to that, my goodness, and just get to this guy. And it's going to be Davis Martin, another guy I'd never heard of, going in the second game. And you should have the advantage there. And then Garrett Crochet, who's had a monster breakout kind of season, going in the third game. So that one will be tough. If you lose one of the first 2, then you could easily lose this series because you got to face Crochet, although the Giants will have Webb going on their side in that Crochet game. And in the middle game of the series, the Giants will have Robbie Ray, who's got a 6 ERA, so that's no guarantee either. So you just got to take advantage. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So just lastly, a tribute to the end of the Battle of the Bay. I think I said this with Sully, if you caught my crossover with him. He's the host of not only Locked On MLB, but also Locked On A's right now. And we discussed when the A's were coming into San Francisco, the end of, that it was the last time the Oakland A's were coming into San Francisco. So if you're unfamiliar, they're not moving to Vegas next year. They are eventually moving to Vegas, but in the interim, they're going to play their games in Sacramento, where the Giants AAA affiliate is. So the A's are going to play literally their regular season games in a minor league park, which to me, Sully pointed out the weather is way tough for a major league stadium, but it's tough in Vegas too. They better get a roof. But I think it's a nicer facility than the Coliseum. To me, like, the Coliseum has just been a joke my entire lifetime. I know it was once nicer than it is now, but and I hate to say it, like, I'm very sad that the A's are leaving, and I feel particularly bad for their fans who just don't deserve this. They're good fans. They're Bay Area, residents, and there's a unity among Bay Area residents. We can all come together around teams like the Warriors, or a team like the Warriors, and we all did when the Warriors were on that run they were on, even though many bandwagon fans, myself included, when it comes to the Warriors. But, we're all kind of in the same region. And so for that loyal fan base that gets very behind its teams when the teams are good, to be losing its team and losing them to Sacramento for a few years and then eventually to Vegas, and they've already lost the Raiders to Vegas and the Warriors to San Francisco. It's just the city of Oakland. It's just the fans of Oakland sports have just gotten a very raw deal here. And, the owner, John Fisher, there's a lot to say in the negative bucket about John Fisher in all of this, like a lot to say. Check out Sully on Locked On A's. I'm sure he has a lot of that covered. It's kind of, I did not do this on purpose, but I'm wearing a green shirt if you're watching on YouTube, and my Giants hat. And so, the A's fans consider the Giants like their biggest rival by far. And so it's the Giants don't view the A's as that kind of rivalry. It's always been a weird dynamic, like a little brother kind of thing. And, the Giants have the Dodgers, and that rivalry is so much more historic and old, and from a Giants fan's perspective, like a true rivalry versus a more friendly rivalry with the A's. But they don't see it that way. They see it as more serious. And, so these games really matter to them. So they're probably happy they were able to split the 4 games with the Giants. But anyway, I just feel bad for the fans. Like, even though they've been rude to me when I've gone to games, it's just because they're defensive about their team and their scrappy team and their ballpark that rhymes with the word scrappy. So I'm not sad that stadium, that the Giants won't have to go there anymore, but I do feel bad for, Oakland fans. They deserve a nice stadium with a better owner and a good team. That would be like the best outcome, but that's not what's going to happen here, it seems, with the move to Vegas seeming like an inevitability, and then Sacramento is going to start next year. So the Giants will be going to Sacramento, where they have their AAA team, to play the A's, and they're not going to be known as the Sacramento A's. I don't know what they're going to exactly call them. It just says ATH on the schedule, athletics. So, yeah, anyway, that was the end, and it's very sad, and I just feel for A's fans. Anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow breaking down this pivotal Game 1. You got to take advantage of the White Sox. For your second listen, go check out the Locked On MLB podcast. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day. You can find the link to Locked On MLB in the description, so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And a reminder that you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. Once again, I'm Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter or X at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out so much, so thank you in advance, and thanks to everyone who's done so already. Can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.